The Last Tsar. A reign begins. Nicholas Alexandrovich Romanov, Tsar of all the Russias. A title heavy with history, with responsibility. He inherited a vast empire stretching from the Baltic Sea to the Pacific Ocean. Nicholas, a young man thrust onto the throne, was not prepared. He was shy, deeply private, a stark contrast to the autocratic image a Tsar must project. Yet he loved his country, his people, with a sincerity rarely seen in the grand halls of power. His coronation, a spectacle of unimaginable splendor, masked the simmering unrest beneath the surface. Russia, a land of immense beauty and heartbreaking poverty, was on the brink of change. The winds of revolution, whispered in hushed tones, were already beginning to blow. Nicholas, blinded by tradition and his own insecurities, failed to see the storm clouds gathering on the horizon. His marriage to Princess Alex of Hesse, renamed Alexandra Fyodorovna upon converting to Russian Orthodoxy, seemed like a fairy tale. Deeply in love, they embarked on their journey as Tsar and Tsarina. Their love, a beacon in the often cold and calculated world of the court, produced 4 beautiful daughters, Olga, Tatiana, Maria, and Anastasia. Yet the longed-for male heir, the Tsarevich who would secure the dynasty, remained elusive. A family in the spotlight, love and tragedy. The Romanov family, seemingly blessed, hid a painful secret. Alexei, their only son, heir to the vast empire, was afflicted with haemophilia. This inherited blood disorder, a ticking time bomb within their family, cast a long shadow over their lives. Alexandra, a mother desperate to protect her son, became increasingly secluded, her world shrinking to the confines of the family and a select few. The weight of the crown pressed heavily on Nicholas. His reign was marked by increasing social unrest, a growing divide between the monarchy and the people it ruled. The Russo-Japanese War, a humiliating defeat for Russia, further eroded the Tsar's authority. Protests erupted, demanding change, demanding a voice in their own governance. Nicholas, clinging to the autocratic traditions of his forefathers, seemed unable or unwilling to understand the changing tide. Within the gilded cage of the palace, the bond between Nicholas and Alexandra deepened. Their love, tested by adversity, became their refuge. They found solace in their children, their laughter echoing through the grand halls. The girls, raised with love and a strong sense of duty, were a source of joy and strength for their parents. Alexei, his health a constant worry, was the center of their world. The Tsarina and the mystic, a dangerous influence. Into this world of fear and uncertainty entered Grigory Rasputin, a self-proclaimed holy man. Alexandra, desperate to save her son, saw Rasputin as a savior. He seemed to possess a mystical power over Alexei's bleeding. His presence, however, proved disastrous for the already fragile image of the Tsar. Rumors of Rasputin's influence over the Tsarina spread like wildfire. His debauched lifestyle, his alleged hold over the royal family, became a source of scandal. The court, already suspicious of Alexandra's German heritage, whispered of treason and dark magic. Nicholas, blinded by his love for his wife and his trust in her judgment, failed to see the damage Rasputin was inflicting on his reign. The people, their distrust of the monarchy growing, saw Rasputin as a symbol of the rot within the system. He became a convenient target, a lightning rod for their anger and frustration. His assassination, a desperate act by members of the aristocracy, came too late. It only served to further destabilize the already precarious situation. The Tsarina, devastated by Rasputin's death, retreated further into herself. Her hold on reality seemed to waver. The Tsar, torn between his love for his family and his duty to his country, found himself increasingly isolated, his authority crumbling around him. The stage was set for revolution. The Great War, Russia's upheaval. World War I, a conflict that would engulf Europe in a maelstrom of blood and destruction, proved to be the final nail in the coffin of the Romanov dynasty. Russia, ill-prepared for such a massive conflict, faced devastating losses. The Tsar's decision to take personal command of the army, leaving Alexander in charge, proved disastrous. The war exacerbated the existing problems within Russia. The economy crumbled, food shortages became commonplace, and the people, tired of endless war and suffering, grew increasingly restless. The Tsar, distant on the front lines, seemed oblivious to the plight of his people. The Tsarina, increasingly reliant on Rasputin's discredited memory, became a figure of hatred and suspicion. Revolutionary sentiment, simmering for years, boiled over. The Tsar's abdication, a desperate attempt to quell the unrest, came too late. The Romanov dynasty, which had ruled Russia for over 300 years, was swept away in the tide of revolution. Section 5. Revolution's fire, the Tsar's abdication, February 1917. Petrograd, the imperial capital, crackled with unrest. Strikes fueled by hunger and anger crippled the city. The Tsar, urged to return from the front, seemed paralyzed by indecision. His authority, once absolute, evaporated. The unthinkable happened. Soldiers ordered to quell the uprising joined the revolutionaries. The Tsar, traveling by train, found himself stranded, abandoned by those he had ruled. His abdication, signed in a railway carriage, marked the end of an era. The Romanov dynasty, once synonymous with absolute power, ceased to exist. Nicholas, no longer Tsar, was a prisoner in his own palace. His family, caught in the maelstrom of revolution, faced an uncertain future. The world they had known, a world of privilege and power, had vanished. Section 6. Imprisoned, the walls close in. The Tsar and his family became prisoners, first in their own palace, then in the remote Siberian town of Tobolsk. Stripped of their titles and their wealth, they faced an uncertain future. Yet even in captivity, their essential humanity shone through. Nicholas, his shoulders stooped but his head held high, found solace in his family. He read to them, played games, and shared stories of their past life. Alexandra, her health fragile, drew strength from her faith and her love for her children. The girls, adapting with remarkable resilience, helped their parents and found comfort in each other's company. Alexei, his hemophilia a constant threat, remained the center of their world. Their captors, initially hostile, were disarmed by the family's gentleness and their quiet dignity. The Romanovs, once rulers of a vast empire, were revealed to be human beings facing adversity with courage and grace. Their captors, witnesses to their plight, began to see them not as deposed monarchs, but as a family caught in the gears of history. Section 7. Hope and despair awaiting fate. The days stretched into weeks, the weeks into months. The Romanovs, isolated from the world, clung to hope. Hope of release, of reunion with loved ones, of a return to some semblance of normalcy. Their faith, tested by adversity, became their anchor. They found solace in small things, a shared meal, a game of cards, a moment of laughter. They celebrated birthdays, marked anniversaries, and held fast to the rituals of their former life. They were determined to preserve their humanity, their dignity in the face of unimaginable cruelty. Their captors, caught between the brutality of the new regime and their growing sympathy for the Romanovs, became increasingly conflicted. The family, sensing their captors' unease, clung to the hope that their lives would be spared. They wrote letters, smuggled out with the help of sympathetic guards, pleading for their lives. Their pleas, however, fell on deaf ears. Section 8. Ekaterinburg, the final curtain. They were moved again, this time to Ekaterinburg, a city in the Ural Mountains. The house of special purpose, their final prison, was a grim, foreboding place. The Romanovs, their spirits worn down by months of captivity, sensed that the end was near. In the early hours of July 17, 1918, the family was woken and told to dress. They were led down to the basement, their footsteps echoing in the silence. Nicholas carried Alexei, the boy too weak to walk. Alexandra and the girls followed, their faces pale, their eyes wide with fear. A firing squad awaited them. The Tsar, his arm around Alexandra, shielded his children as best he could. The order to fire rang out. The sound of gunshots, the screams of the dying, echoed through the basement. The Romanov dynasty, which had ruled Russia for over 3 centuries, was extinguished in a hail of bullets. Section 9. Legacy of the Romanovs, a story unfinished. The execution of the Romanov family remains one of the most brutal acts of the 20th century. It was a crime that shocked the world, a symbol of the savagery of revolution and the depths of human cruelty. Their bodies, hastily buried in a shallow grave, were discovered decades later. The legacy of the Romanovs is complex and contested. They were rulers of a vast empire, their reign marked by both progress and repression. They were victims of circumstance, swept away by forces they did not understand. They were above all human beings, flawed, loving, and ultimately tragic. Their story, a tale of love, loss, and betrayal, continues to fascinate and horrify. The Romanovs, frozen in time, serve as a reminder of the fragility of power, the capricious nature of fate, and the enduring power of hope in the face of despair.